It is just about go time. Game 1 of the World Series from the Rogers Center in Toronto, Friday night. In fact, the first two games in Toronto. We're talking Dodgers, we're talking Blue Jays, we're talking World Series with our latest episode of MLB Game Night Postseason Edition. We are underway.
When that final out is made, you know it's time for a Locked On MLB Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On MLB Game Night. Your team every day.
We are off and running and ready to have a whole lot of fun with our latest edition of MLB Game Night, Postseason Edition. He is Lindsay Crosby. Lindsay is the host of the Locked On Braves Postcast. You can follow him on the X at Crosby Baseball. I'm Steve Lenox, host of the Locked On Red Sox Postcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow me on the X at Lenox on Baseball. Latest MLB Game Night show presented by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to receive $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Download that FanDuel app today. Lindsay, we are ready to go here with our latest episode. We were on with Jeff Carr, JD, John, and Brian on Wednesday. And again, just one more sleep. And with that, we're going to open up the show. Welcome in Pete Fox. He's going to join us from the West Coast. Pete, of course, with Locked On, as the host of the Locked On Dodgers Postcast. And Pete, as you know, we welcome you in here, and we do appreciate taking a couple of minutes with us here. We're inside 24 hours. Tomorrow night we'll be in the middle innings, perhaps, or maybe even a little later. Game 1 of the World Series. Right now, 24 hours away. What is your big theme with the Dodgers now that they've had all this time off and we're ready to go?
Well, obviously confidence is high around LA, and everyone feels like this is going to be a pushover. I don't think it's going to be that easy. One of the things that I have, kind of in my favor right now is the last time the Dodgers and Jays met up, the Dodgers just took advantage of them and it wasn't even competitive. So I feel good about that. But, there's these random baseball stats that we always run into that when a team has swept, waiting for a team that went 7, that team that went 7 has won. Was it 5 in a row? So that's a little scary, but look, good pitching beats good hitting almost all the time. And the way Blake Snell and Yoshinobu Yamamoto are throwing the ball right now, it is tough to feel like the confidence is not as high as it can possibly be. Yamamoto threw a complete game. Blake Snell should have thrown a complete game if Dave Roberts wasn't so locked up in whatever sort of analytics they were screaming at him. So everything from that perspective is good. When you look at what Shohei Ohtani did in game 4 to win the MVP, he woke up because he was absolutely asleep prior to that. And Dodger fans were not happy at me at all for saying that. I don't know that he deserves to win the MVP for one good game. He had 2 hits prior to that. In that series, he struck out 17 times and only 9 hits, but that was a fantastic once-in-a-lifetime game. So let's hope that game for Shohei Ohtani turns the page and he is the Shohei Ohtani that we are familiar with and is a game wrecker.
Pete, I want to go back to something you touched on. Good pitching almost always beats good hitting. And you're right, the Dodgers' starting rotation has been phenomenal this postseason. We saw it a lot in the regular season, though, and a little bit in the postseason where some of the bullpen guys have been a little less reliable than you want. When you're looking at a team in Toronto that had the least strikeouts in the league and the best batting average in the league, is there a worry that this rotation is going to get into high pitch counts and you're going to have to get into that bullpen earlier than you did against Milwaukee?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously that is always a worry because you can't expect 8 and 9 innings on a regular basis in this day and age in baseball. But the fact is that the offense has been productive. It hasn't been the kind of Dodger offense that we've expected from them. These were a bunch of tight games, right? Let's be honest. And if it wasn't for that starting pitching, it would have gone very differently. And, Philly kind of giving them one there at the end. was also very beneficial. Look, a lot of things have broken in their favor and gone their ways. That is for sure. So yes, Dodger fans are terrified of this bullpen, to put it mildly, terrified, except for Roki Sasaki. So if they can get deep and they only got to go one guy and then Roki, and hopefully that guy is not Blake Trinan walking people like crazy. Maybe it's Vesia or Bonda. Those guys have been very reliable and effective and high up on the trust tree. So yeah, there is always a worry if you have to get into the bullpen in the 6th inning, without a doubt.
Yeah. Follow up on that is there's been so much attention paid to Toronto's Trey Savage, right? The youngster, he's made like 5 starts at the major league level. He's starting game 1, and it's going to be on the road. We saw the Yankees, another team like LA that uses the advanced Traject hitting machine to get comfortable with a pitcher. Is there any concern for LA that they're not going to be able to replicate what he does from a unique stuff perspective, that splitter from that high arm slot for game 1? Or do they feel comfortable that they're ready for anybody Toronto can throw at them?
Yeah, look, they're definitely comfortable. There's always a worry. Look, this team does a good job of, kind of maintaining through in the first 5 or 6 innings and trying to scrape across a run or two. But it's almost like I've looked at Dodger games recently as 2 games, like when the starter is in there and then when they get to the bullpen, right? It's literally, it's a different ball game. Like, yeah, they could be up 3-0 through 7 and you're cruising, and then they get to the bullpen and, it just all falls apart at times. So there's absolutely a concern that, when you face some guy who is effective on the mound, but the Dodgers always seem to struggle against a team's ace, right? So this time of year, things are different. Their confidence is through the roof. So I don't think they're going to look at it and say, yeah, this is not what we expected or tougher than we expected. They're definitely ready to go, rested up and locked in at this point.
Pete, we're going to hear a lot about the Dodgers are ruining baseball. How do you make the case against that argument that is sort of a national trend right now?
Well, I don't really have to make it. A lot of Dodger fans are making it for me. And there's been a ton of social media posts to this effect. And I'll just steal their words because they make a lot of sense. You go through all of these guys that the Dodgers now have on their team that were on other teams. And we'll start at the top of the lineup. Shohei Ohtani. He handed the Angels a contract and said, here you go. And they said, no, we don't want to pay it. The number 2 batter in the lineup is Mookie Betts. The Boston Red Sox did not want to pay him. Freddie Freeman in Atlanta. You 2 guys know about this very specifically. Freddie Freeman said, I would love to stay in Atlanta, even though he's a California guy. They did not want to pay him. Teoscar Hernandez, another guy that they did not want to pay. So that's 4 guys right there. Blake Snell, Tampa Bay did not want to pay him. So all of these guys gave the teams that they were with opportunities to stay around, and those teams just opted to not pay them. And the Dodgers said, well, if you don't want to pay them, we will. Tyler Glasnow is another one. So that's kind of the Dodgers fans' defense to that argument that they're ruining baseball. You guys that own other baseball teams could have done that. Like, you have money. And look, I realize the Dodgers are uniquely rich and they have an extraordinary amount of money, but that's part of the game, is it not? Like, you got to have the money to pay these players. And if they don't, I just watched part of the Montreal Expos documentary about what caused them to leave and go to DC. That was a big part of it. When all of those guys, ended up, Larry Walker, Marquise Grissom, they ended up somewhere else because Montreal didn't want to pay them. And that's going to do in a lot of professional baseball teams, but it's been to the Dodgers' benefit for sure.
Yeah. Final kind of question here from me is, we all know the Shohei Ohtani, the Blake Snell, the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freeman. Who's the underrated player on LA's roster that needs to have a good series for them to get their 2nd consecutive championship?
It's either Max Muncy or Tommy Edman. Those guys are look, Max Muncy can hit the ball out of the yard, and they need that. And, they're both at the middle to the bottom of the lineup. Sometimes they'll move Max up into the 4th spot. But Max Muncy's got to hit the long ball, and Tommy Edman's got to get on base. He had a fantastic NLCS. He won the MVP last year, and you could have made an argument, as I did, that maybe he could have won it this year as well. So those 2 guys, to me, are very huge for the Dodgers to do what they do, get on base and hit the long ball.
Pete, great stuff. Enjoy it, and hopefully we can catch up with you. But thanks so much for taking a couple of minutes with us here on MLB Game Night.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me.
Pete Fox joining us, and Lindsay, we're going to talk with Carter first. Coming up in our next segment, we'll cover the Blue Jays with Carter. But I love your final question there, because we've been on that. You and I have been harping on those role guys, and Muncy and Edman. I'm kind of during this postseason, I'm sort of got a man crush on him right now.
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of Tommy Edman, guys that can just play anywhere on the field, right? Shortstop, center field, things like that. Part of me wonders what kind of role is Andy Pages going to have to play. He's doing terrible.
You mentioned him, yeah.
Yeah, like 0.98 batting average, but playing center field with two questionable defenders around him in the corners. He's going to have a big game defensively, and throwing in a couple hits in the bottom of the order wouldn't be bad. You mentioned last night on the preview, if you can hold Shohei Ohtani to a solo homer versus a 2 or 3 run homer, well, Andy Pages is the guy who's going to decide how many runs come in on that run. So,
yep. We'll take a break again. Thank you to Peter Fox, Locked On Dodgers Postcast host. We're going to talk with Carter first, Locked On Blue Jays, when we continue MLB Game Night Postseason Edition.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I personally love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live line during games. Like, it's what makes watching sports even more exciting when you don't have any sort of specific rooting interest that's going to pull at your heartstrings, but you've got a little something riding on the action. So I don't know what you're waiting for. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses does not solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everybody. But listen, when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. They make it super simple to get started. You connect with a board-certified doctor. It's 100% online. There's no awkward waiting rooms. There's no in-person appointments. It's just fast, simple, and private, all handled by real doctors. And if you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. So visit Rougiette.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB to get 15% off your first order. That's Rougiette, RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnMLB so they know we sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses. Start making moves.
Game night, every game, every night, postseason edition. He is Lindsay Crosby. I'm Steve Lenox. We're going to bring in Carter first, Locked On Blue Jays, in just a moment. Lindsay, going to the comment section here, Andrew, AJT, Vesia, Peter Fox mentioned him in the Dodgers bullpen, big arm there, may not be on the roster due to personal reasons. Just going to ESPN.com, Alden Gonzalez with the story of he may not be available. There's something going on away from the field. We wish him all the best. But he may not be available for the entire World Series in the opening 2 paragraphs on ESPN.com from Alden Gonzalez. We will get into that coming up in our third segment. And again, we're going to welcome in Carter first in just a moment. But your thoughts on that real quick.
You never want to see somebody go down. Obviously, he played a big role in their regular season. And it felt like in the postseason, he was a little bit immune to the bullpen issues that they were having in general, right? He wasn't the number one go-to reliever. That's Roki Sasaki. But it felt like Alex Vesia was a useful guy with a very hard-to-hit fastball. So hopefully, he's just him and his family are okay, and hopefully they can figure out what to do without him.
Carter first, Locked On Blue Jays, visits with us here on MLB Game Night, postseason edition. Carter, thanks so much. Let's get right into Toronto. Here we go. Dodgers, Blue Jays. Yes, Blue Jays, home field advantage. They go full 7. I like the fact that they still had the 3 days off. But let's go with the rotation. It's Trey Savage, the rookie. We've talked about him. We'll get your thoughts on him. But right now, they're still undecided, at least for Game 2. We all probably imagine it's Kevin Gausman, but not just for the first two games, but how those two guys set up for the rest of the series. Give us your thoughts on that as we open up.
Yeah, the only reason that Kevin Gausman is not pitching for the first game of this World Series is because he pitched in Game 7 out of the bullpen. He does not have enough rest. Kevin Gausman is a guy that pitches very well off of increased rest. Does not like pitching off a short rest in most scenarios. So Trey Savage, we've seen him all playoffs, the unique arm angle, the swing and miss you've seen throughout the entire playoffs. You got to be confident. It's another start that's at home. So these are your two guys that you're going to have to ride throughout this entire series. Again, it's going to be impossible to match up against the starting pitching that the Dodgers are rolling out. One of the best starting pitching tandems that I've ever seen, probably my entire life, to be completely honest. So you're going to just need to be competitive. And that's what Trey Savage has done. He's been giving you more than just competitiveness. He's been giving you elite starts, ace caliber starts. And Kevin Gausman, I expect him as well to be your number 2 starter. I think it's just one of those things that John Schneider's waiting until the last moment just to show the Dodgers his hand, just to have that little bit of advantage. You're going to take every single advantage that you can get going into the series. But yeah, it's going to be Trey Savage. It's going to be Kevin Gausman. And those 2 games at home are going to be pivotal if the Toronto Blue Jays want a chance in the series.
Yeah. One of the biggest stories it feels like going into this World Series from a kind of a micro or roster level is the availability of Bo Bichette. Does it feel like he's going to be on the roster? And if he is, will he be playing the field, or do you have to shuffle things around to put him at designated hitter?
I think with a lot of these cases where you have an injured player going in, a lot of the time you see him playing at shortstop. You'll be seeing him be fielding balls in the infield. Whereas this scenario, you're seeing him take balls at second base, which usually is a pretty tall tale sign that, hey, this guy's not fully healthy. So if you're already, having this decision where we're not confident throwing him at shortstop, and you have Andres Gimenez there, he's one of the best shortstops, even though he's a second baseman, but he's still one of the best defensive shortstops in all of baseball. I think you're at the point now where it doesn't look like Bo Bichette is 100% healthy, but we know how good this guy's bat is. We know how prolific he can be at the plate, one of the best pure hitters in all of baseball. So we know how important it would be to get Bo Bichette in this lineup. But then there's another dialogue that needs to be said here, because George Springer just got hit in the knee by a 96 mile an hour fastball, who's predominantly been playing DH this entire season, has looked a lot more comfortable at DH. Now, does he play the outfield? I think that's where you're going to have to go. If you can't play Bo Bichette in the infield, you want him in your lineup, he's going to have to be the DH. So George Springer probably going to have to be slotted in that right field spot a couple times. But yeah, I can't say that Bo Bichette is fully healthy. So that's going to be something to monitor. This guy has not played a baseball game since September 6th. And he's not going in. Doesn't have this ability to get his feet wet. He's going in against Blake Snell in the first game of the World Series. Not exactly the way you want to be reintroduced to the major leagues, but you got to be confident in Bo Bichette, and you got to just stop. You can't stop believing in this team right now.
Yeah. Zooming out for a second, we've seen a lot of those maps that always pop up, and it's like who everybody is cheering for. And obviously, all of Canada is behind the only remaining Canadian baseball team in the Blue Jays. But a lot of the United States is kind of on the record as also pulling for Toronto against Los Angeles. What is it like? Does it feel any different for Toronto fans to think about, like, not only is this a national pride thing, but a lot of the U.S. is behind us as well because of the perception of the Dodgers?
I think that narrative would kind of go along with any baseball team. I don't think it's just a Blue Jays centric narrative for that one. I think the Dodgers are just the villain of baseball. Not a lot of people like the Dodgers right now with what they've been doing. Again, with all the payroll stuff, you guys probably talked about that a lot on this podcast, so I won't go too far there. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see how it just unifies all Canadians from West Coast to East Coast. Just seeing the reactions from fans at bars, obviously with our friends, the group chats going off. People at, like, my family members, friends that don't even really watch baseball have texted me. Obviously, I have the podcast as well. So we've been having some interesting conversations just about this team and just how crazy it is that the Blue Jays in 2025, after what happened in 2024, are in the World Series. But yeah, it is pretty cool to see, other fan bases see where they put their fandom in a situation like this. And yeah, we'll take anyone that we can get at this point, because the odds are being stacked in our favor. So we'll take anything that we can get to our advantage.
Carter, I have a handful of people in the first state of Delaware reminding me that John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, played for head coach Bob Hanna at the University of Delaware. He's a former Blue Hen. In the back of my mind, and maybe not up front, but in the back of my mind, I feel like John Schneider was on the cusp of not being the manager of the Blue Jays the last couple of years. I don't think that narrative plays in the World Series, but is it accurate to say that, that because they didn't meet expectations in the previous couple of years, that he was sort of in the crosshairs?
you could say everybody was in the crosshairs. People were saying that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette were going to be traded before the season was even done. So Ross Atkins, another guy, their manager, not a lot of people liked him. So it's crazy how the narrative has kind of switched. And even looking back at the ALCS, Game 5, the Brendan Little situation that was talked about constantly in our podcast, really around MLB media all over the place, why are you throwing Brendan Little in those situations? So I think there still is some doubt with John Schneider and his ability to make those decisions. And then you're going against Dave Roberts, who has been in the World Series last year, and obviously all the experience that he has. John Schneider with his first time being in the World Series. That's another narrative that I think people will have to look at, is kind of the managerial battle that will happen. The experience versus, the fresh faces in the World Series, which isn't just John Schneider. There's a lot of Toronto Blue Jays that have not been in this World Series before. So it's experience versus the new guys. So with John Schneider, that's something that I'm going to be looking out for. Hopefully he can just roll with his guys, and hopefully the moment does not get too big for him.
Yeah. Carter, we know that obviously Vlad Guerrero Jr. has to have a big postseason, a big World Series. George Springer, big World Series. You need Kevin Gausman to perform, things like that. Who is kind of the underrated or quiet player that has to step up and have a big series for Toronto to knock off LA?
I don't know if you could say that this is a quiet player anymore, but it's Ernie Clement with what he did in the ALCS. It's just unbelievable stuff. This guy, like, the whole team does not strike out, but Ernie Clement is really the epitome of that, getting the barrel on the ball, just having crazy swings that you do not think should result in positive results for the Toronto Blue Jays, but he ends up doing it as well. And first game, they get Blake Snell, again, a very good lefty, maybe one of the best lefties in all of baseball. Tiger Skubal is, a separate debate that we can have there. But Ernie Clement is even better against left-handed pitchers than he is against right-handed pitchers. So in that Game 1 specifically, with Dalton Varsho not very against lefties, Addison Barger probably doesn't find his spot in the first game against a lefty as well. You're going to need a guy to step up. Davis Schneider's another one there as well. But Ernie Clement is a guy that's been showing us all playoffs long that he has the ability to show up in these big moments. So I expect that to happen once again in the World Series.
Work the pitch count, work those counts, make Blake Snell work in Game 1, get to that bullpen early and often. Carter, thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. More excited than ever to watch what unfolds on Friday night.
And you get to watch Dan Shulman, Buck Martinez, Hazel May.
Oh, what a great
Couldn't get any better than that. It's elite group we have going here in Toronto.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Carter Fuerst joining us. I'm glad I got that in there. I don't know that we can get him in the States, and I'm fine with Joe Davis and John Smoltz, but I don't know that that Canada had their local broadcast teams for the Blue Jays on board on the TV side, and back in the days when they won 2 straight World Series titles in the 90s.
I really understand the whole point of like I get it that the national broadcasters pay a bunch of money for the postseason and they want their announcers to do it. But I really do feel like you lose something in the postseason by not getting your broadcast crew, the one that's been there with you for 162 games. Now the radio call is still there. You can still find a way to sync all that up, but it's not the same. And I wish MLB or the broadcasters would find a way to give you the option of who you want to listen to or something like that so you can still get your local guys. And I'm a little bit jealous of Toronto that they get that.
We've had a great playoff and postseason run so far from Major League Baseball. I'm going to get Lindsay's thoughts on a lot of different topics. And one of the guys I grew up, Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly on staff for John Schneider, is in the World Series in uniform for the first time, never made it as a player in the 80s with the Yankees. That's one of the storylines that we'll touch on next as we continue with our third segment, MLB Game Night Postseason Edition. Steve Lenox, Lindsay Crosby, happy to have you on board.
This episode's brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of an amazing October with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Because playing Prize Picks is such a fun and simple way to add more excitement to whatever sport you're watching. You just pick more or less on player projections, Shohei Ohtani's total bases, Josh Allen's passing yards, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. And for football, they've added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, their rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. And it's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. So download the PrizePick app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
Pete Fox, Locked On Dodgers Postcast host, and also from Locked On Blue Jays as well, Carter Fuerst. We may have Carter. We're trying to have them live after the games. We'll see what happens, but hopefully we'll at least be able to provide shorts over the course of the World Series. That I'll start right off with it, Lindsay. I give a strong A minus to the postseason so far. And I said it on our show last night with Jeff hosting, and JD and John and Brian being on with us as well, and enjoyed that. We're just baseball is deserving of a 7-game series. I don't know if we get it, but I would just like to see a World Series here go a full 7. I think it would cap off what's been a terrific baseball postseason.
I think my prediction last night was Dodgers in 6. So I have it going a little bit longer, but I agree with you. I want as much baseball as possible, because when this is done, all we have is Arizona Fall League and, college doing fall ball, and we have the Venezuelan Winter League and things like that. But I want to turn this question around on you a little bit. If it goes to 7 games, who has the advantage and who is probably winning if it does go 7? Because LA has not played a long series yet. Right. LA has lost 1 game the entire postseason. If it goes 7, who does that benefit?
The easy answer is always to say the home team, right? So in that way, it would be the Blue Jays, and the I'm going with the Blue Jays here. I know I'm going against the norm here, and I'd certainly lose money if I went on one of the apps, FanDuel app, and right now and all of that. But I would think it's the Blue Jays, because again, the Dodgers, tested, won last year, all that. But I think if they really got into what's going to, might turn into, there's probably going to be a game in the series that's maybe 12-10, 10-8, maybe 1. And I think if it got to that deep and it was in a game 7, I just feel like, Vladdy, Springer, who knows where Bo Bichette will be. But, if it almost becomes a home run derby, I take the Blue Jays at home.
See, that's tough for me to think like, Shohei Ohtani, like matching them up one-on-one. It's like Shohei Ohtani over Rod Guerrero. Yeah. If you're out of the home run derby kind of thing, right? But I do agree that if it goes 7, having home field advantage is a big deal for Toronto. And that should be their goal, is to obviously hold serve at home, get at least 1 in LA to make it, make sure they get back to Toronto for that. I do want to say, though, and this is my favorite part of every postseason or every World Series. There are 2 men right now who do not care who wins the World Series, because they're getting rings either way. Buddy Kennedy played 7 games with LA, 1 for 17, 1 RBI, and 2 games for Toronto, 1 for 5 with a run scored. And pitcher Jose Urena pitched 8 total games combined between LA and Toronto. Either way, these 2 men are getting a World Series ring. Congratulations to those World Series champions, Buddy Kennedy, Jose Urena.
I don't know why I bring this up, but I bring up the money side. The ring is great. Are they getting a World Series share as well, even a partial share?
They've got to get a partial. You've got to give them something. Right? It may not be much. Like, I think if Toronto wins, they're more likely to get something, because when a team wins the first one they've won in a long time, and the players are usually more generous and they vote more shares than the veteran-laden team that's been there before, that's done it and all of that. So I imagine they'll get a partial share, an 1/8 of a share or something, if Toronto wins it. I don't know what they'll get from LA. I do want to ask you, too, about the ratings, though. Nielsen does include Canada in their ratings. And if you look at the most viewed World Series in the last couple years, it was 7.3 share, 15 million viewers last year for Dodgers-Yankees. Does this beat Dodgers-Yankees last year?
They count Canada.
They count Canada, yes.
Yes, it does. And you're talking LA, New York, and I think those are good numbers from a year ago. I don't know what they compared the previous 5 or 10 years, but you're going to have, I mean, they are locked in. This isn't Toronto. This is across the provinces. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, I think the numbers across Canada are gonna certainly be significant to break, to pass what we had last year.
For context, last year was the highest average viewers per game since 2017. So It's been a lot of like 9 million per game up until last year, 15 with that big matchup. But I think your point's right. With with Canada being part of this, it's got to do more, even though Canada's not as many people as we expect. It's still a lot of people watching this, and they're all going to be dead.
And 2 years ago, 5 games. Last year, 5 games. Last year's numbers would have been even bigger if we got game 6 and game 7. This goes 6. I'm still, fingers crossed, go 7 for sure. Because that's what TV wants. That's what baseball wants. That's where TV makes its true money. Is the deeper the series goes, it goes 6 and 7. I think it's going to have a lot of eyeballs.
Absolutely. Game 7, 2016's Game 7 was 40 million viewers to watch the Cubs beat the Indians.
And it's the Cubs. Yeah, the storyline, that it was written with that. Yeah. And that was a terrific World Series. I mean, the Cleveland had Rajai Davis.
Very, very well played baseball. Yeah, like it's that's the thing. Like people like me, diehards like us, we're gonna watch every single one, but this has the opportunity to really be a big deal for the future of baseball by getting a lot of Canada on board and a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't always be watching baseball in October as hockey was starting up and things like that. I think this is a big deal for baseball to get this right.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, doing this show made me enjoy it, of sitting down in the afternoon games and all of that stuff. But, my eyeballs wouldn't have been on it if we weren't doing this. But, I'm paying attention to when John and JD were on Monday through Wednesday, if there were a game so we could get ready, but also just because I thoroughly enjoyed this postseason. So to you, hey, I'm the old guy in the room. I'm always the old guy in the room on MLB game night. But do you think baseball has done a good job? This postseason has done a good job to bring in a younger audience?
I think they've done everything they can. I don't know if they've been perfect on this. I do think the broadcasting thing doesn't help. It sounds blasphemous. He's part of my team, or he was part of my team. Listening to John Smoltz call a baseball game is not always the most fun thing to do. And so I do worry about things like that. Like if you're trying to get younger people to tune in and one of your broadcasters is complaining about the sport while he's calling the game, it feels like it's suboptimal to grow the game. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe that's just because I hear John Smoltz a lot during the course of the season when he sits in on the Braves and things like that. But outside of that, I think they've done just about everything they can, whether it's staggering the game times, but letting you go from one to the other, doing everything they can to try and make it accessible as much as they can, given the television restrictions and the networks they're on.
Game 1. The only other words are going to bring a bigger smile to my face right now is if we say a game 7. I know there's hyperbole or, whatever you want to say behind that right now, cliche, but really looking forward to it. And we're going to be on board within minutes of the final out, game 1 with MLB game night on Friday night. Snell and Savage needs to get into the 6th inning at least, right?
He needs to go deep into the game. They need to run up the pitch count on Snell. Like you said last night, I need Ernie Clement to have a 15 pitch at bat against Big Snell.
Yeah. Enjoyed it. We'll talk again tomorrow night. That wraps our latest edition of MLB Game Night, postseason edition. Again, tell all your friends about us. And Lindsay and I are going to be on Friday, Saturday, and then it'll be Brian on Sunday. And then the series will shift for games 3, 4, and 5 in Los Angeles, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. MLB Game Night, every game, every night. We always appreciate you being a part of our audience.